Hey everybody, welcome back to the Relentless Growth Podcast. Your host here, Chase Calhoun, and myself, Jack Maher. We're happy to have you listening. Again, we would love feedback. If you've got a comment, shoot it to us. Let us know what you want to hear about. If you like us, rate us. If you don't like us, you can rate us too. But preferably some good ratings would be better than bad. But we just appreciate everybody tuning in, everybody listening. I think we've got a pretty interesting topic today. But first, we always start out every podcast with a win. So what's a win, Chase, that's been happening for you lately?
I'm gonna do a personal one that's kind of cool. My little brother just had him and his wife just had their first child yesterday. So little baby boy, both mom and baby boy are healthy and everybody's super happy. So it's exciting for the family and really exciting for them. So that's kind of cool one for us. How about you?
That's awesome. Well, I'm gonna follow suit with a personal one. My son Judah is 5 months old, and he just got his first tooth, and so in just a little bit he'll get to start eating some food, and that's always a fun stage. So we're excited to be able to go through that again. So that's a win.
That's exciting, man. That's awesome. Cool. Well, let's jump into it. What do we got today?
Yeah. So for today, we're talking about network coaching, community, kind of the people you can surround yourself to help with success. And so, I'd love to hear just kind of your take on that topic. The statement that a lot of people say is like your network is your net worth. Like, what's kind of your take on that, and just your kind of overview on the importance of those things in your own life?
Yeah, and I think that statement is very true, and I think that's something that is super super important. And I feel like for me, I look back at some of the success I've had, and I think that's probably a huge part of it for me. I think it's something that like early on I was maybe kind of starting to understand and being aware of, and then we're both members of GoBundance, which is an entrepreneurial group. And that's something I joined several years ago, and it has made a huge impact on my life personally, and then also professionally and success and everything else like that. And I think that's a big part of that is just getting in a room with guys that are farther along and more successful than you or just killing it at doing cool stuff in life and being great husbands and fathers. And I think the more time you can spend like that, definitely the better it makes you. What do you think?
That's awesome. No, that's fantastic. So like GoBundance, obviously we're both a member of that, but like tell your story with kind of what that organization is a little bit and how you found it, how you got started. What was kind of that process for you to say, hey, this is worth it?
Yeah. So when I joined and how I joined, it was interesting timing and everything else, but it was a cool experience for me because I can remember, it's been several years. I don't even remember exactly what year it was, but they did Bigger Pockets was super popular back then. I was a new real estate investor, so I'd listen to Bigger Pockets as much as I possibly could. At the time, I had this really like kind of crappy job that had me driving all over the state of Arkansas, and I would try to fill most of that windshield time with listening to podcasts like Bigger Pockets. And I remember at the time I was like driving somewhere to go to an appointment. And at the time I was doing, I think one flip or something at the time and, kind of all stressed out and all the stuff going on. And they had an episode that came on that was at a GoBundance event where they talked about GoBundance specifically. So Bigger Pockets, the guys were in the podcast were part of GoBundance as well. So they kind of explained what GoBundance was, and then they interviewed the founding members of GoBundance, and they did a really good job, explaining why they started it and what it's for. And so I recommend anybody, and we might be able to link it, I'm not sure, but if they can find that podcast, it was a great podcast. But I just remember they were talking about it, and they were talking about how who you surround yourself, it really affects, who you're going to become and with all parts of your life. And I was listening to that podcast, and I was just thinking like, man, it'd be super cool to be a part of that someday and be sitting in that room and listen to this thing live and like, man, that'd be really awesome. And so anyways, fast forward to a couple years later, it was like, in the height of COVID, I was like real estate investor, kind of half freaked out that like not knowing what was going to happen with all the rental properties. We'd moved into a 1-bedroom apartment while we were building our house in the height of COVID, which was not the best time to be building a personal house. And I had somebody reach out to me, and he's like, hey, he introduced himself. And it's funny because he lives where I used to live in California, but I didn't know him then, but we got connected, I think, through social media. And he's like, hey, I think you should check out this GoBundance thing. I think you would get a lot out of it and you'd be a good fit. And at the time I was like, I don't think I would even qualify. And he's like, well, look, check into it and see if you would. And I think you should apply. And so I did. And then I found out how much it cost. And I was like, again, trying to build a house in the height of COVID and all that. I'm like, oh. And so I remember talking to my wife, and I'm like, I want to join this group, and it's like $1,000 a month. And she's like, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? She's like, and with her, it was like, I think like just this misconception. It was smaller then, and she's like, I don't know, like you're going to go to these events with all these other guys. Like I don't know if that'd be, a good idea or not. Plus, it's expensive, and just looking back, making the decision to spend some money to surround myself with people that were more successful than me, and then the impacts on me and like my life. It was, one of the best decisions I ever made. It was well worth it and has been a huge impact. And then even Brenda afterwards, looking back, because she's gotten to be involved with it and spend time with other wives and stuff like that. And she's, I don't think she was super sure about it at the time, but then afterwards looking back, she was like, yeah, I think it was a great, great idea. How about you? What was your experience with getting involved with GoBundance?
Yeah, sure. So similar in a lot of ways. I can remember hearing a podcast. It was Bigger Pockets as well, with Brandon Turner talking about it, and how, just talking about the openness of the group, and how, everybody knew almost everything about each other, and whether it was financial or family, and just that concept really appealed to me. And I was probably in college at the time. So, it wasn't even, I didn't register the possibility that like, I could do that one day. It was just like, that's a really cool concept. And so fast forward, probably same thing. It was 21 or 22, I think, when I joined. And so, a year before that, actually, my dad had joined. And so he had gotten involved, and which is kind of a unique thing. There probably aren't a lot of father sons in there, and he's, GoBundance's demographic is generally a little younger, which he loves. That's why he joined. But and so I got plugged in with. We have GoBundance has pods where they've got small groups of guys that talk every week, and so I'd gotten plugged into a great group of guys, kind of as I was joining, and just kind of immediately experienced the power of the group. Of hey, there's just 4 or 5 guys who are on a similar trajectory, none of them doing exactly what we were doing, but all things where they were highly motivated. They wanted to be successful, but they weren't going to do it at the cost of their family. And, they all had big goals, and just kind of feeling that initial feeling of talking to like-minded people and being open. And I think that's one of the toughest things as a real estate investor or any kind of investor. If you experience any level of success, there's kind of like a, hey, we don't talk about that. It's sometimes it's tough to find a community where you can be like totally open and honest and say, hey, I killed it over here, but over here, man, we absolutely screwed up beyond belief, and being able to experience both those highs and lows. And so getting able to experience that, it became a decision for me to join. And same thing, it's a lot of money. It's just the reality of it. It's a lot of money. But I feel like you get a lot of value out of it. And the one thing I'd be interested to ask you, I'm sure we've both been to real estate meetups and things like that are free or have a pretty nominal cost. Like, what would kind of be your distinction between this community that you have to pay to be a part of, or free events or networking groups or things like that, where the cost or barrier to entry is a little lower?
Yeah. That's a weird one. So I don't know if it's necessarily a cost thing when I think about like GoBundance specifically, because dude, I get a ton out of like the GoBundance events, the GoPods, and the people I meet with GoBundance. It's expensive, but I think it's well worth it. I've done other like real estate events where I'll pay, it's expensive, and I'll go, and there's a lot of good, value that's there. And then I've gone to free stuff, and kind of through GoBundance usually, but it's like maybe it's not a paid thing, but it's just we're going to go spend time like we've done it with you guys, where we come out and spend time with you. But that's
Right.
more valuable than the paid stuff. So it's not necessarily that. The one thing that I will say with GoBundance specifically is it's that being open and honest and like really sitting down, like having the one sheets and kind of knowing where everybody's at and at what level and the stuff they're struggling with and things they're doing in business. It's weird. Like I get a ton of value out of that. And there's just also like a lot of extra trust and I think, kind of relationship that's built through that. And that's something that I don't get like maybe locally. Like I've got some friends where it's like, and not that it doesn't exist at all, but like, I know they're doing well, they're doing things, but they're really not, there's just a different level of trust. That's when you're being really open and honest and like, here's everything. These are like my income and my net worth and my body fat percentage and my, and my goals with my relationship with my wife and my kids and all, when you go that deep with guys, it's just, there's a whole nother level there than opposed to if I was just going to like a local real estate meetup. Like it's hard sometimes because I don't know if I'm talking to a guy that like, I always think about like your dad, for example, like when your dad wants to tell me about something, like I'm going to shut up and listen because he's way more successful than me. And I just want to listen and let him share as much knowledge as he's willing. But like when you walk into a room, like, I don't know if I'm talking to that guy or if I'm talking to somebody that's just making stuff up. And so I think that's a powerful thing that GoBundance has been able to figure out and achieve. And I do think there's some of that there with some of these paid real estate events. I'm a huge proponent in paying for education. And it's like, I wouldn't be where I'm at if I hadn't done that repeatedly along the way. And even for a long time, like one of my goals was to spend like a percentage of what I was making each year on just straight up education, because I think that's important. But I do think that GoBundance, because of the way it is set up, is just a little bit ahead of some of these other paid ones. And I think there's still value out of free ones and free conversations and just networking. So how about you?
No, I feel the same. I think a lot of people want to give you good information. I think the benefit of GoBundance is they've gotten that group of people together who are open and honest and want to help. There are people all over who are like that. I know some people locally who, hey, how did you do X, Y, and Z? They'll come spend a half day with you, whether it impacts their business or not, and they'll tell you how it's done. But it's harder to find. It happens more organically. I think the big benefit of GoBundance is you've just got whatever 1,000 guys who all feel that way, and so it's a pretty powerful network. What about, obviously you've talked about getting started and learning from some guys. What about like mentorship, coaching? Kind of what's been your journey on that side of it? Have you done any paid stuff, or have you had any impactful relationships from that standpoint?
So it's interesting for me because I think I may have taken a little bit different approach and not necessarily, or probably not the best way to do it, but just the way I chose to do it, where I didn't have like a local mentor that kind of helped me get into real estate investing. Like I kind of figured a lot of the stuff out the hard way. But what I will say, with the internet today and access to stuff like Bigger Pockets or podcasts like this one that we're doing, where people are willing to share, like there's not anything that I'm doing in my business that I wouldn't be willing to share with other people to help them be better. I think I had a lot of help and mentorship along the way, but it was just through like stuff that people were putting out on the internet for free. Usually via podcast. Like, so you can go out there and, you may have a mentor who you never get to meet, but you can take in all the information that they're putting out there and have it be super helpful. Now, a little bit later on, like now, like I'm spending a little bit of, obviously more time and money on things like some coaching programs and stuff where I think I'm going to get value. One thing that I do believe you do, and I'd love to hear about it, and I haven't done, is like higher level one-on-one coaching. I've done it like in other parts of my life, like fitness and stuff like that, but not necessarily with business. Coaching is something that's been a part of your journey, correct?
Yeah, so coaching and mentoring has been a really big part of my journey. Obviously, my dad has been one of the biggest mentors to me all throughout my life and now, and thankfully he hasn't charged me yet, which is great. But I've had a variety of, there's been a lot of people when I started out in the business, a lot of his long-term employees were mentors to me, showing me the ropes. And then I've had a coach, Trevor McGregor, for maybe 5 years now. So a pretty long time. And we talk every 2 weeks. And when I first did that, I think it was right after my first year in the business. And, he's a business coach, a life coach. And that first contract that I had to sign, it was one of the more daunting things I've done in my life. It was a significant sum of money, and it was a big lift, and it was kind of crazy because you think about a life coach and you're like, man, is that where I'm at? Is that and they're all different types, but man, the value that I've gotten out of that is so. I know that I wouldn't. Right after that, I did an Ironman. It's helped me with family. It's helped me to grow the business. It's pushed me. It's kept my mindset right. And I think all this stuff, how I view it at least, is just, it's all a part of a pie. And the more you can surround yourself with the right information, the world doesn't think like we think, and the world doesn't want you to think like you think. And so you've got to make a real intentional effort to surround yourself with the right people who are going to keep your mindset in the direction it needs to be going, focused on growth, focused on opportunities, not on whatever bad stuff is happening in the world. And so I think the more you can build a wall around yourself with that sort of influence is kind of how I look at it, is whether it's GoBundance or people locally or coaching, it's building that wall around your mind so that you can keep moving forward.
Yeah, I love that. Love that.
And then kind of to wrap this up, obviously when you're talking about paid stuff or when you're talking about free stuff where you're having to invest time, how do you look at ROI? Because I think that's the interesting thing that a lot of people ask, like, hey, you're spending a ton of money over here. What do you get out of it? Or how do you know that you're getting things out of it? Maybe it just makes you feel good. So like, how do you kind of look at that side of it?
Yeah, again, it's been something that I've placed a lot of value on, even early on. Like, honestly, like when I joined GoBundance, I couldn't really afford it. And when I was going to some of these real estate events, it was stuff that was a stretch for me to afford. I've looked at it like the more that I can learn and the more that I can get around people that are doing bigger things than me, the better off it's going to be for myself. And then as I start to grow a little bit, like I don't think you can put a number on it. Like here's the percentage return on what I spent on all this education stuff. But I definitely think it's something where I wouldn't be where I'm at today had it not been for taking the time and energy and spend the money to get in those events and around these people to learn and stuff like that. And I think it's something that a lot of people may not place value on. And I think they're kind of making a mistake by not doing that. And so again, I guess just circling back, I think that the ROI is not, I just don't think it's something that could be measured per se, but I think it's definitely something that's there. And then as I continue to grow, like spending money on that kind of stuff now, it's like a no brainer for me because I know I'm going to end up getting more out of that education than what I'm spending. So I think it's definitely worth it.
No, I think you're spot on. And I think, everybody's in a different spot in life. I think early on, a $10 book might have an idea that's going to make you, a ton of money. And in the same vein, as your business grows and as you grow, a $1,000 event may have an equal impact on a bigger business. And the financial, it may not be directly attributed to it. I feel the same way. It's you're never going to have hey, I got 13% back on the money I spent last year. It's not going to be like that. But just the small ideas, the nuggets, the lessons you can learn can have a big impact on your business or your life or your family. And they're all important things. And so just to kind of bring it to a close and wrap it up, like what would be your encouragement to people about mentorships, growth, networking? Like what would be your encouragement to people on how to kind of look at that stuff?
I think a big thing for me is very like a tactical thing that everybody can do if they choose to, even if you're not ready to spend money on like a coach or a paid networking group like or a group like GoBundance. It's just really being cognizant of who you're spending time with, and are they people that you want to be like. And then, good and bad, like you have to be very aware of that. And it doesn't mean that like everybody I spend time with doesn't have to be wealthier than me, because that's not all that's important to me. But I want to make sure that the relationships I'm spending time on, like there's some part of that person's life where they are excelling. So maybe their fitness is absolutely insane. So I want to spend more time with them. So I know that it's going to help me want to be, prioritize my fitness. Or same thing, spiritual. Like maybe it's somebody that's, a lot farther along in their spiritual journey and super knowledgeable. So I want to prioritize that relationship so that, I can grow in that area as well. But then the flip side of that is like, maybe there's some people that I don't want to be like, and it doesn't mean they're bad people. And it doesn't mean that like, I'm not going to be kind to them and whatever, but it's maybe I'm going to be pretty, upfront about just not wanting to build relationships with them. And that's something I caught like early on. And I'll give you an example. Like maybe some of my, subcontractors would be like, "Hey, you want to come to the bar and go drinking on Friday night?" Like they're great guys and just, good people and stuff, but like not necessarily somebody that I want to be like. And so just saying, "Hey man, I think I'm gonna pass and spend time with the family or whatever." And so just being aware of and prioritizing who you are spending that time with, and or like cutting out spending time with people that you don't want to be like. I think it's very important.
Honestly, I could not have said that better myself. I think that's a key, and you got to be comfortable with being different. I think that's the biggest thing about that is if you act like everybody else, you're going to end up like everybody else. Whether it's family, spiritual, work. If your goal is to be different, then you need to act different, and the only way to do that is to act different. And sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes I can remember my wife hated it, but when I was training for the Ironman, we'd have friends going out, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm going home at 9," or I'm this. I need some sleep. Like if you have big goals, you've got to sacrifice something. You can't do everything and get there, and maybe some people can, but I can't. You've got to sacrifice something along the way, and so being willing to do that, being willing to just be different, act different. I think is the big distinction for me as well. So I really appreciated that take. No, this was a great episode. Thanks for kind of walking us through your journey, Chase. And again, just to close it out, I encourage everybody, send us your comments. How did you get started? What was your first coaching experience, or what's been a big impact you've had from mentorship? Let us know. Let us know in the comments. Like this, give us a positive rating, and just let us know what you'd like to hear next. We'd love to tackle topics that people are interested in. So let us know what's next, and we'll talk to you guys next week. We appreciate it.